episode of Just Julie. I'm your host, Julie Ramirez, and today I want to share with you and bring awareness about a very important cause that's near and dear to my heart. Some of you guys know that my mom was diagnosed with brain cancer, and I kind of want to walk you through that story. I want to walk you through what she went through and the steps that we took, and really bring awareness, because a lot of people find that they hear a lot about breast cancer and about colon cancer, but very rarely do they hear anything about brain cancer. And so for me, growing up, I didn't really know anybody that had cancer that was really close to me. And so for my mom to get sick like that, and for her to pass away from such an aggressive cancer, it was a big deal for me. And so I want to bring awareness to it, because this is definitely one cause that there isn't a lot of attention that's drawn to it. There isn't a lot of people that have it, but it's a cancer that's taking a lot of lives, and there's just absolutely no cure for it. And with it being in such a delicate part of the brain, it makes it harder, because your brain is the main source of function. It's the computer system of your body. And so it makes it really challenging for you to be able to get, the type of surgery or treatment that you need to fully remove it without having any sort of repercussions from that surgery regarding your mobility skills. So I really wanted to dig in today. I wanted to talk to you about that and share my story, and I hope that it inspires you guys to learn a little bit more and be aware of the different types of things that people are going through around you. Hey everybody, welcome back as I share my story with you about what I went through when my mom got diagnosed with brain cancer, and walk you through exactly what we went through. So it started in 2005 after my daughter was born. My mom came to help me get back from maternity leave and transition back to work like most moms would, helping their daughter. She had just turned 50, and I was so excited. I know she was excited, because we had tried and tried and tried. Tony and I were trying to have a baby, and it just was not working out. And so it was an exciting time and also a scary time for us, because we found out that we were pregnant. We went through a lot with that pregnancy, and then we ended up having our daughter, Ash, in July. In October, my mom turned 50, and while she was staying with me, she just said that something just didn't feel right. Like, she didn't feel like she could write her name. I just kind of thought it was like a pinched nerve. It was really strange. And so I took her to the nearby urgent care, and they gave her some scripts and sent her home. Well, she continued to watch the baby for me on the weekdays while I transitioned back to work. And one day she said that she still wasn't feeling well, and asked my husband to come home so that he could watch the baby. I was away at a conference. And so she went home, and she was having trouble just being able to write her name. I remember the story. She said she was in Walmart, and she couldn't sign the credit card receipt. And so that was weird. But, naturally, a pinched nerve, something like that, would affect your ability if it's really severe. A few weeks went on, and I was at work, and I was working the later shift at work, and I got a a call from the receptionist saying that my family's trying to reach me. And so I was wondering what was going on. When I'm at work, and I don't really focus on a whole lot of what's going on outside. And so it was kind of scary that they were trying to get a hold of me. And this was the day before Thanksgiving. Tony and I had planned to go to Thanksgiving dinner at both our parents' house, and we were going to pack up and leave that Thanksgiving morning. Well, when I got the call at work from my mom, and she said that something was wrong and that I needed to come home, we immediately packed up and we headed south to my mom's house and my dad's house. And so from there, it kind of was where we sat. She told me that she ended up going to the doctor. She was still having some challenges. They went to the ER, and that they found some sort of mass, and they don't know very much about it. Well, as you know, for the Thanksgiving holiday, everybody sort of shuts down, so we didn't really get a whole lot of answers. And so that particular holiday, my grandparents and my aunts, they ended up coming down because obviously they were concerned about my mom, but also, we were able to have Thanksgiving dinner at my aunt's house. So I remember that she said that she didn't know anything. We were all confused because we couldn't wrap our mind around what could have happened, what it could be. And so also finding out that it's a mass, like, we hadn't had anybody that we knew that had a mass of any sort on any part of the body. So that was confusing in its own self. My mom was scared, and so was our entire family. We didn't know what to think. We didn't know what to believe. And it was a long wait after the holiday. After the holiday was over, we finally got in to see the doctor, and the doctor explained that my mom had a mass the size of a quarter on her brain, and that we needed to figure out whether or not we needed to biopsy this mass in order to tell if it was cancerous or non-cancerous. And so it just seemed to snowball since that first call, just not knowing, not understanding, not being able to wrap our mind around it. We just didn't know what to do or what to think. And I was with a new baby, so I was juggling that as well and toting her around while I could kind of stay around with my mom and my dad to figure out what the heck is going on. After that holiday, we ended up getting scheduled for a biopsy. She ended up going in for that biopsy. And we waited and waited and waited, and it was such a long and daunting wait. I remember I had Ash at the hospital, and I was just trying to, keep my mind occupied so that she could get out and we could just kind of move on with what we were doing before, because I never had anything like that that we went through, and I never had anything that serious affect our family. Anyway, the doctor came out, and I'll never forget the words. He said that my mom's biopsy showed that the tumor was malignant, and that it was definitely cancerous. It was in its stage 4, and stage 4 is pretty severe. And with it being in such a sensitive part of the brain, it's an even bigger deal because it's affecting her mobility, which is why she was having some functionality with using her arm. So we went And I remember I just sat there and I cried and I cried and I just could not understand what was happening. How could everything go so different the days before and everything changed so fast, so quickly? And so it was a whirlwind because she ended up staying in the hospital, and the doctors really, it was out of their scope. It was a small hospital. They didn't know exactly, what the next steps were. They didn't have a lot of oncology resources in our town. And so I ended up getting the idea of calling Moffitt Hospital to see if we can get an appointment where she could go and we can get some more definitive answers. Moffitt was about 2 hours away from her house, and I was halfway between where they live and where Moffitt was. And so we made an appointment. We went up there to see the doctor. And it was so weird because that whole hospital just caters to people with cancer, and I've never seen, I remember, I didn't know one person that had cancer, much less a whole hospital full of people that are battling so many different types. So I don't remember a whole lot during that time, but I do remember, toting Ash with me back and forth as we tried to figure out, and I tried to be supportive with what was going on with my dad and my mom. And we met a really nice neurosurgeon. His name was Dr. Chamberlain. And he explained to us everything that we needed to know about this cancer, how aggressive it was, what does it mean for it to be in the stage 4, what's the prognosis, what's the likelihood that she's going to be able to survive this. And so talking with him, this was a very daunting topic because here, just a few months ago, I had a healthy-year-old mom. She was never sick, never had a cold, never had anything, really any medical challenges. And now she just turns 50 and all of a sudden everything's just suddenly changing for the worse. The doctor told us that this was a really specific type of cancer, and it was really hard depending on where it was in the brain, and that they could operate, but she would have to go through chemo and radiation. There were really a whole lot of drugs on the market for brain cancer. There wasn't a cure, and so what they had was some experimental drugs that they were using and that they were testing to see if that was going to be the new revolutionary cure for cancer in the future. So that was probably, that was in November, December, the Christmas Eve. We spent Christmas Eve at Moffitt Hospital. And my mom went in for surgery, and she ended up going in, having the surgery. They had warned us that there was a possibility that she could lose more mobility depending on where the tumor was, and that her speech could get affected, where she could lose her ability to talk. So when they told us the surgery was over, I immediately rushed up to her, and the first thing I wanted her to do was talk to me so I could see if she had lost her ability to talk. And it took her a couple of tries, but she ended up saying some words that I could understand. And I was like, oh, thank God, thank God that, she didn't lose her ability to speak. What I forgot to tell you guys was when my mom had gone in for her biopsy, she was able to walk into that hospital. After the biopsy, because of the positioning of the tumor, she was unable to walk out of the hospital. So initially she came in, she could walk in, she had majority of her functionality, and then she can't walk out. So for her to then be told that there was a possibility she could lose her speech, that was crazy. And so Dr. Chamberlain operated that Christmas Eve. She came out. They said they had gotten as much as they could, and that there was going to be a possibility that she would have seizures. And she did. She had some really, really, really tough seizures. As a matter of fact, those seizures were so scary that I couldn't even wrap my mind around what was happening. It was so traumatizing because when somebody's having a seizure and they're not used to it, you don't know what's happening, and the first thing you want to do is ask them what they need and what you can do to help. And there is absolutely nothing that you could do to help. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about my story about my mom and her journey with cancer. Hey everybody, welcome back from our short break. I am talking about my mom and her journey with brain cancer and what we went through. The story picks up from, Moffitt Hospital, where she had received an aggressive treatment plan. For those of you who don't know, Moffitt really is on the cutting edge of a lot of different techniques and strategies to try to help people survive or extend their quality of life once they're diagnosed with this specific brain cancer. The brain cancer that my mom had was called glioblastoma, and it was an aggressive type of tumor, an aggressive type of cancer. It's almost like a spider web, and then once you remove part of that tumor, it comes back more aggressive, and it comes back more, comes back stronger and meaner and more aggressive than before. And so it can really cause a lot of damage to people that are diagnosed with this type of cancer. It's a very rare cancer. I've read that it's primarily found in men. I have also read that it's primarily found in people over the ages of 50s. And I've also read that the life expectancy is not very promising at all. Doctors can prolong your quality of life, but there's really no cure for it. And so through chemo, radiation, aggressive therapy and scans, all they can do is really monitor and make this the best situation possible. And so we started that brutal treatment plan for my mom. She underwent chemotherapy, she underwent radiation. She ended up having really, really bad seizures, and it was really hard for me because with seizures, we weren't used to it, and we really didn't know what to expect. We didn't know how all of this new disease, this new situation, we didn't know all of what was going to come with it. The emotional, the mental, just the worry, the not knowing. And so it was really hard. As my mom continued to go through chemotherapy, she started swelling up. She became very, very bloated. Her face was unrecognizable. It was very puffy. Her hair had been shaved, exposing the scar from the operation from her Christmas Eve surgery to try to remove most of the tumor. And so this woman that I thought, that I always had in my mind and could perfectly describe, was turning into somebody that was sickly and frail, having trouble even just coordinating simple functions that you wouldn't even think twice about. Walking was challenging. Eating was challenging. Because of the seizure, she was having a hard time talking. She couldn't say more than a couple of words or shake her head yes or no. And that was really hard because you can't have a conversation like that. You couldn't sit on the phone like you used to. And so watching her deteriorate like that, I mean, it was a rough year. I remember that I ended up leaving my job, and I ended up moving in with my mom and dad so that I could stay close to home. Tony ended up staying so that he could work, and we would see each other on the weekends, just so that I could feel like I was having a sense of control or a sense of comfort knowing that I was there, because there was so much going on and it was so much for my dad to go through by himself. So I remember after months of not working, I ended up going back and taking a job filling in for somebody else that was on maternity leave. And it was in June that I found out that my mom's cancer was back. And not only was it back, but it was terrible. It was more aggressive than ever. And so she made the difficult decision of not wanting to go back through chemo and radiation. We tried our very best to talk her through it, and we wanted her to have the best shot possible at beating this. But her body had gone through so much. I mean, she had gained a significant amount of weight from the bloating and the swelling. She was on steroids. She could hardly walk. She had to be in a wheelchair. Her quality of life just significantly declined. A lot of the things that she was doing as an independent woman, she couldn't do anymore. And she had to rely on my dad to help her with a lot of things. Even just being around, being a mom, being a grandma, she couldn't do those things that she was looking forward to. Being able to pick up my daughter, being able to play with her, being able to, being able just to live this normal life that she thought she was going to have it come crashing down right before her eyes. I mean, it's devastating. So in June, when we found out that the cancer was back, she did go through some treatment, and then it was November 9th that she passed away. And if you guys have never lost a loved one or you've never lost a parent, it was probably the most devastating, hardest, challenging, most gut-wrenching experience that you can imagine. Number one, you're in denial because you can't believe that this happened. Number two, you don't really understand that now that person that you had your whole life is no longer going to be there by your side. You can't pick up the phone and call them. And it wasn't until I really became a mother that I understood how much, having a mom really means to a young woman in their life. And so it was hard. It was hard picking up the pieces. It was hard watching her suffer. It was hard watching us be able to figure out what our new normal was. What were we going to be able to do next? And so I share this story with you because, number one, like we tell everybody in our business, you never know what may happen. You could be fine today, and then tomorrow it could be a completely different situation. You just don't know. And you want to live your life, and you want to make sure that you have things to where they're buttoned down. Because when somebody passes away, and you're going through that grief and everything, you don't want to have to deal with the minutia of having to deal with the aftermath, the technical stuff. And so I want to share my story with you guys in hopes that I can bring awareness to brain cancer. I hope that I can bring some attention to hopefully finding a cure for this specific type of cancer, glioblastoma. I also want to highlight, the specialty and talents of Moffitt Cancer Center, and all that they do for patients every single day to improve their quality of life. It's amazing, and so I share my story with you because I lost my mom at the time that I needed her the most. And I'm hoping that this will help some of you that maybe have gone through a similar situation and give you some sort of comfort knowing that you're not alone, and that unfortunately when life happens, it happens, and you've got to figure out how to maneuver through it and be able to survive from whatever's going on. And so I appreciate you guys joining me today. I so appreciate having this forum to be able to talk openly about my situation. And I hope that you guys will tune in next week for another episode of Just Julie.
Why is glioblastoma so tough to treat? This is Dr. Patrick Hu from Moffitt Cancer Center with your Moffitt Medical Minute. Glioblastoma is an aggressive tumor that starts in the brain or spinal cord from cells called astrocytes, whose normal function is to support nerve cells. Glioblastoma is difficult to treat for a number of reasons. One reason is that the tumor has characteristic finger-like tentacles emanating from the main tumor mass into surrounding brain tissue. With no clear margins, surgical removal is difficult and tumor tissue is often left behind, creating the opportunity for regrowth. Patients require radiation and chemotherapy following surgery. Another challenge is the blood-brain barrier. A feature of the central nervous system, this layer of tightly packed cells serves as a roadblock to bacteria, viruses, and other pathogens, but also limits the effectiveness of some chemotherapy drugs to get into the tumor. In treating this aggressive brain tumor, the greatest potential lies in research and clinical trials seeking to evaluate the newest and most promising options, such as stimulating the body's immune system. This is Dr. Patrick Hu with your Moffitt Medical Minute.